All right. Let's see. Welcome to Patriot Lament. Why is not my headset working? This may sound odd, but you really need to be able to hear yourself when you're Well, I can't hear me. Hopefully, let's try something.
Wrecked by heartburn. Nothing works faster.
No. Hello? Huh. I can't hear me, but it looks like it's going through. So, anyways, before we get going here, I wanted to tell everyone that we are also now on the FM channel 97.5. 97.5. So, if you want, you could jump over there because I'm sure that the quality of the sound is going to be a lot better, especially if I'm playing some rock and roll. 97.5 FM. This looks like it's just KFAR, but broadcasting in FM. Can't get much better than that. 97.5 FM on the radio, but obviously 660 still works, and it will work on your TuneIn apps if you're using that. But heck, why not listen to it in FM on 97.5? Let's get this baby rolling.
What if Wednesday, where we talk about preparedness, thought-provoking Thursday?
If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go from us in peace. We ask not your counsels or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. Samuel Adams.
The time is near at hand, which must determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves. George Washington.
And what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that this people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Thomas Jefferson.
Posterity, you will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it. If you do not, I shall repent in heaven that ever I took half the pains to preserve it. John Adams.
I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale. Thomas Jefferson.
Government is instituted to protect property, this being the end of government. That alone is a just government, which impartially secures to every man whatever is his own. That is not a just government, nor is property secure under it, where arbitrary restrictions, exceptions, and monopolies deny to part of its citizens that free use of their own faculties. James Madison.
It would be an absurdity for jurors to be required to accept the judge's view of the law against their own opinion, judgment, and conscience. John Adams.
Whenever the legislators endeavored to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience, and are left to the common refuge which God hath provided for all men against force and violence. John Locke.
It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here, idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Patrick Henry.
My people perish for the lack of knowledge. God.
give me a call, please. I need to see if my headphones are going to work. Otherwise, this may be a boring show. 907-458-8255. I can't even hear this cool song from your headphones. What the heck's going on around here? I don't even know if I'm coming through on the radio. Sucks. All right, no one's listening. All right. I understand I'm usually not here on time, but I am today. So somebody text me or call me and tell me if I'm on the air because I can't hear anything. Rather bothersome, I must say. Oh, well, I'll just pretend. There we go. Somebody heard me.
Hey, Josh.
Hello, caller.
This is Layla, and I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Get mad.
Hello? I'm not on the air.
How about now?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? He can't hear us, but we can hear him. Hello? Are you there?
I hate this stuff.
Oh. Turn on the button that turns on the speaker. Come on, Josh. You can do it.
Cranked up.
Hello?
Phone.
Hello?
Huh. I see I have a caller, but
Yeah.
I'm not here.
So can you hear me now?
Can't frickle frackle too much because I'm on the air, apparently. Try that. No. Hello?
Hello?
Well, there's something. Hello.
Hello?
I can barely hear you, but you're there.
Oh, good. I've been here all along. And, and you are on the air.
All right. And you're coming through on the dealio, so I'm using a different
this is
channel.
Layla, and I was like, somebody should help him out.
Thank you.
Sure. Not a problem.
This is weird because I'm using a different channel for the headphones, and I have them maxed out, and I can still barely hear. So I tried the other headphone jacks on the other side of the table, and none of them work either.
Oh, that could be a problem if Mike's joining you today, right?
Well, don't think he is. I think he's out gallivanting around.
Gallivanting. Well, you know, it has these hints like it might be a good day for gallivanting, and then it acts like maybe it won't be. So it's hard to know.
Nah, it'll be good. Clouds are out. It's good enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for helping me out here.
You're welcome.
I'll make do. I'll suffer.
You don't need to hear the people who call in, right? It won't be a problem.
I'll make this easy. Everyone, you have to listen to me the whole time.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right,
Bye. Okay. Well, this is going to have to do. Sorry for my flubbery, but I just don't know. And again, I know that sounds weird, but when you can't hear yourself, because you have to wear the headphones, it's really odd. Spooky. All right, let's get down to business here. First of all, hopefully, I don't know if anyone's seen this little Trump business about attacking Iran. Hopefully that's just trumped up. But the feds are denying it, so usually when they deny, you know that they're lying, so they're probably going to. I don't know. Hopefully not. That would be not a good thing at all. In fact, if we do a preemptive strike on Iran, I might just say, I've had it. And bump out of here for good. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just bluster. They're good at blustering. Almost as good as Winnie the Pooh on the blustery day. But we'll see. That would just burn my shorts, to say the least. We don't need to have that. It was encouraging to see a poll where only 37% of Americans, well, I don't know if that's encouraging. 37% of Americans actually approve of a preemptive strike, like right now. Yeah. And I believe all 37% were strong Trump supporters. So your neocon, war loving, psychopath freak shows, basically, is what you're talking about there. But the majority of people, I think it was 58 or 59%, are like, no way. And 25% of those were strongly disagree. And then the fun one is when you have, 30, 50, 80. So you have something 90% of the people respond. Then you have that 10% of the people that you just got to love where they are unsure. You got to wonder about people that when you ask them the question, do you think the United States should do a preemptive military strike on Iran's oil facilities and nuclear facilities? And they say, I don't know. Might want to check them into the ward, if you know what I mean. That should be a really easy no. Then you got the other side that just say yes. So, yeah, it won't be a cakewalk. But again, hopefully it's just nothing. But if you don't know, there was a report, some Australian thing, and you can't trust the Australians. They talk funny. They some report over there, some dude says that the U.S. is preparing to do a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities as early as this coming month. So we'll see. We shall see. Let us hope and pray. No. All right, go to the phones here. If you want to call in, 907-458-8255. Remember, we're on 97.5 FM now. So hopefully that sounds gooder than this does. Oh, caller, thanks for calling in.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Have you heard the latest rumor?
Well, I've heard a lot, so which one?
That when Trump went over there to see Putin, and then Putin gave Mr. Trump a soccer ball, CNN was saying that it had a tracking device in there.
Yes. And I believed it wholeheartedly.
Don't you believe that?
Yeah. I was like, wow, those guys are smart. That's brilliant. So the soccer team gives Putin a soccer ball, and Putin gives it to Trump. Yeah, that's a dirty way to get it done. Because I'm sure everywhere Trump goes, he's going to be carrying the soccer ball around.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Anything that happens here, it's Putin's fault.
Yeah, I know. It's disgusting.
Everything.
It's really, those people are really, like CNN in particular, but MSNBC and them, I mean, they make themselves look like buffoons.
Well, they're not, to me, they're not a real news. They're like a scandal magazine.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you go for the checkout at the grocery store, somebody's got 2 heads and somebody had 4 kids, and
And
on it
and
goes.
somebody
So,
listens to CNN.
well, I just listen to it all, but mostly I listen to Fox. But they're so ridiculousness. It's beyond. But I wonder how much they get paid.
Well, if you remember Anderson Cooper, who is one of the broadcasters for CNN, he actually worked before he became a broadcaster, and apparently still work for the CIA. So,
who does?
Anderson Cooper.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Ah, okay.
Yep. It's you can look it up.
Anderson Cooper works for the CIA.
Yep. He trained with them out of college and is still a part of the organization, apparently.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah. That's for sure.
That's the scariest thought I've ever thought of in my life. He knows more information than I would. Oh, my goodness. That guy's scary.
Yeah, not only is it news to you, it's not only bringing you news, he knows all about your news, too.
Oh, goody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have a good day now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call.
Bye.
Have a good day. Yeah, that's kind of funny. The soccer ball thing. Good grief. I mean, they don't even make bad movies that would do that anymore, And it's coming from CNN, if you'll remember. And I remember the broadcast, watching it at my grandmother's house, where because we didn't have TV, and she had cable, so it was, you know what I mean? Always wanted to go to Grandma's house. So go to Grandma's house and watching the war. And if you remember, they had, I don't remember who the jokers were back then, but they're on set, supposedly in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and they're having a reporting, live on the ground on CNN live at Saudi Arabia, and all of a sudden these supposed air warning sirens kind of, and things start shaking, and they're running around, and they go and grab their helmets and put flak jackets on and all this garbage, and it was all set up. So they were making a scenario that they were being attacked by Scud missiles from Iraq, but they're actually just in a studio with the blue screen in the background, yada, yada. But they sold it as the real thing. And for some reason, they're still in business. So if they're doing that, then kind of probably think that they're a little more sophisticated now because the technology is a little better. Reminds me of when the Hillary, remember she said, I forget, was it Bosnia or somewhere that she went and visited. And she said when she got off, she was given a deal to an interview with CNN, I believe. When she jumped off the helicopter, the bullets were ricocheting all around her, and she ran for cover. Ah! And then somebody actually got the real footage, and she's standing around blabbing in front of the media, and then they go walking off nonchalantly to their quarters. Then I remember there was that guy, not from he's either from NBC or something, and he was supposedly in a war zone getting shot at, and a helicopter was shot and all this stuff, and somebody found the footage. It's kind of funny in that scenario because these people forget that while they have more technology now, so do the rest of us. Got it? So do the rest of us, CNN. You're doing all these fancy things, whatnot. I have an iPhone 7 in the palm of my hand right now, and it does everything that you can do. It's funny, we were watching some home videos last night from the late 80s, early 90s. And I guess that was a cool thing to do. But man, people were terrible. Like 90% of the footage is the ground. You know what I mean? And people's feet. Every once in a while, the camera bobs up. Oh, there's a head, back down to the feet. bob up, back down to the feet. But my daughters and I were laughing. It was fun to watch. Anyways, so we were talking about how, you had this big old camera that weighed 50 pounds on your shoulder. And, that was technology, baby. Now, just grab your little iPhone or Mitsubishi phone or whatever you have, hit a button, press record, and you have way better footage and way better sound right in the palm of your hand. It's just kind of funny because these people, it's like they're still playing the facade, right? They're still playing the games with the bullcrap stories. They just go on. They don't change. They're no different now than they were in the 80s when they could hide a lot of stuff, when there was just the big 3 channels and then CNN came along. They still play their media propaganda the exact same way, not thinking about or just ignoring the fact that we have the internet now and everyone has a smartphone. We've talked about it before. You get, you see a story on the media or whatever, check another media source instantly. So let's say plane gets shot down. Hit your phone, Google, plane shot down, bam, 15 stories come up. And you read through them all. Most of them are usually the same because they're all from the same block of media sources. And you're like, Russian plane shot out of the sky, or Russia shoots plane out of the sky in Malaysia. Oh, that's interesting. Then you start digging in a little bit, and someone that's just as credible. A plane was shot out of the sky by an aircraft. That's odd. But they just can't pull the wool over our eyes as quickly or as easily as they used to, is where I'm getting at there. Because all anyone has to do, it's just like anything that happens with Syria gas attacks, right? So you have a Syrian gas, ISIS. Oh, no, it could never be ISIS. Syrian leader gasses his own people. You get these footages from sources that lie to you every day. You catch them at it weekly. They admit it years later. You go to YouTube and see the gaffes. And they do it again. So you're like, oh no. Assad has gassed his people in Syria. What a cruel and evil man. Thousands dead. Then you go searching a little bit, and some dude in Syria at the site has his iPhone rolling, and he's like, yeah, I'm here. Of course, I don't understand the language. But he's showing everything, and yeah, I'm here. That's not happening. Didn't happen. I'm actually on the ground right here. That's false alarm. False story. Or they're just so dastardly arrogant too. The white helmets when, gas attack, and one picture shows these guys dead. Next picture, you see them picking the guy up, and they go running off to set up for the next picture. Another guy's dead. Then you think, wait a minute, look a little closer. So you take your iPhone, put 2 fingers on it, expand the picture up close. Hey, that's the same guy that was dead in the other place. Go back and look. Oh, yeah. The guy's like a cat. He's got 9 lives. He's like dead here. Next week he's dead here. Next week he's dead here. There was an old woman over there that was in like 4 different areas, and she was dead. Old grandmother dead. Next picture, next week, different city. Old grandmother dead. Now you have to wonder, why do they keep doing that? Why does CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, WXYZ, wasn't that a show? TV show? Cincinnati? Maybe not. No, there's something like that. Then you have, and Fox News is no different. Fox has the other side of it. But, you know, Fox is the one that loves to run the gassing shows just as much as anything else. Syrians got to go to war. Got to go to war. So why do they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over? They get exposed over and over and over, and they just act like it never happened, just keep doing it. It's because apparently a certain amount of people are too stupid to realize that it's fake. And they keep swallowing it over and over and over. And some of that is just identity politics type of things, right? So if Fox News is the pro-Trump side there, so any kind of story they make up that makes Trump look good, and if you like Trump, you just automatically think, that's right, I believe that story. Why? And then if you're left-leaning and CNN makes a story about whatever, say anti-Trump thing, you're just going to, I believe that story, because you want to. You want to identify with that story, to hate this guy. You want to identify with the story because you love this guy. And it's not just Trump. It's, everything. And people just keep falling in line, marching goose step to the train tracks. It's frustrating, to say the least. And we have a call, 907-458-8255. Don't forget, we're on 97.5 now, FM. It's got to sound better. I want to play some rock and roll and tune into that. I'm almost like a DJ now. I get to play rock and roll on the FM station. Oh, yeah. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in. Whoop, 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 whoop. Got to turn down the radio. You're on the air. Apparently we have an alien listening in today. Appreciate that. Okay, remember, if you're listening and you call, you got to turn your radio down because you will get what is known as feedback. And while it sounds pretty cool, especially if you're watching like the Twilight Zone or something like that, it doesn't make for good conversation if that is your goal. If it's not, well, heck, did a good job. Got some cool sound effects. Maybe he's actually making his own Twilight Zone, and he did some cool feedback sounds. Media rumpus. Just to be fair and objective, of course, which I always like to be. Well, actually, I don't, especially if it has something to do with the state. But I think, what the heck's the guy's name these days? Pompeo or whatever. He says these reports about attacking Iran. That's what I was saying earlier. They're denying it, so they obviously are going to do it. Reports about attacking Iran are just full of nonsense. Who leaked that story? Who told you? Yeah. So we'll see. I've been watching a really good documentary about the Vietnam War. And I've watched several of them over my long life. And this one by far just kicks it out of the park. So much better than any other. This one's less propaganda. So most of them I've seen are made by the History Channel or Nova, whatever it is. And they've got, a little bit, probably made by the CIA. But not this one. This one's really good. Spends time giving perspectives from both sides of the fence. Even some of the American veterans who were glad they were there, and some Americans that were not glad they were there. And then the other side, Viet Cong and North Vietnamese. Some of them that were glad to be fighting for freedom as they saw it, and some that did not like it. And one of the interesting things, you kind of get a little brainwashed to thinking that your enemies are non-human, right? You kind of got to get that sewn into the back of your mind so it's easier to kill them or hate them, whatever. Yeah, if they're not really human, it's easier to kill. And so some of these Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, they're talking to some of the soldiers, and this one soldier was saying how, I think it was in the Tet Offensive, they sent in like 83,000 men, Viet Cong and North Vietnamese, during the Tet Offensive, during the different things that they hit there, and 57,000 of them were killed. That's a pretty high failure rate. And so they're talking to this old guy, and he just breaks down, bawling his eyeballs out. He said, all of my friends got killed and blown up and tore up. And he said, and I was so excited to get in there in the beginning. I'm like, yes, we're going to free the South Vietnamese, and we'll be one country, and we're going to kick out. They saw us as intruders, invaders, imperialists. And then he just bawls his brains out, just like, ugh, all my friends are dead. And he said, I thought, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? This is not good. And I thought, I hope you're not in North Vietnam anymore, or in Vietnam anymore, because you might get bumped for saying that. But he it's just really interesting to get a lot of that perspective from both sides. And, then there's some where they're talking to North Vietnamese people that were soldiers, and they're, we did it. We were fighting the Americans. It was a pretty big deal, fighting the biggest empire of the world. The mighty American army, and they made a pretty good show of it. Now, a couple million of them got killed, so that didn't work out too good for them. But it's kind of interesting with what was his name? Ho Chi Minh. Right, he was a little bit less, according to this, he was a little bit less eager to always fight. It was one of his deputies, or maybe it wasn't a deputy, I don't remember. But he's the one, he orchestrated, he wanted to fight. He was hardcore, not that Ho Chi Minh was not hardcore commie, but this guy was hardcore commie, wanted to kill Americans. And he wanted South Vietnam, He was an aggressive person, wanted more power, centralized power. Reminds me of some people in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that's true. And I'd never heard of this dude before, but he played a pretty big role in keeping things going. And so Ho Chi Minh, if you remember, was... and I'm just trying to remember because I wasn't alive then, so it's not really. I'm trying to learn more about it. Trying to relearn, actually. So unlearn what I was learned and relearn the truth, which is difficult because you get these preconceived notions and stuff, and you have to really let go of things and relearn things, and it's not easy to do. Especially if some of the things aren't very pretty. Don't fit your narrative so well. But I always thought it was interesting when they first were fighting the French. All right, Vietnam was a French colony. And on that side of it, it was interesting. Some of the American politicians during that time, Ho Chi Minh talks about the Declaration of Independence. Loved Thomas Jefferson. What? Loved Thomas Jefferson. Loved the Declaration of Independence. Loved America's Revolutionary War, the fight for freedom. And that's what he's claimed that he saw them doing. And there were a lot of American politicians at the time who were like, yeah, Ho Chi Minh's got a pretty good point there. The French are colonists. So there was this, I don't know. There's this relationship where there was, hey, these guys are just doing the same thing our forefathers did. These guys were colonized. It's a little bit different because it wasn't, they weren't kicking out their own people per se, right? It wasn't the French colonists kicking out the French government. So in that way, it was a lot different. Where the American Revolution, it was us. I wasn't there. It was Americans, British subjects, American Brits fighting, British Americans, however you put it, fighting their own government, British rule. And this was a little bit different because it's the Vietnamese trying to kick out the French. And so there was a lot of push back and forth in high levels of government at the time. Do we help the French? Do we help the Vietnamese? Ultimately, we helped the French, and by help, I mean we sent men over there, obviously, and this and that. And also, I didn't know this until the other day, the United States government paid for 80%, paid cash money, 80% of the French government's expenditures during that war. So this reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend of ours, Rick, last night. We were discussing paying for the stinking wars. So who even knew that, right? Did those taxpayers in 1963 or 4 or 5, 63, I think, did they know when they were getting stolen from, their hard-earned money was being extracted from them by force? Did they have a clue that the money was, that some of that, 80% of the French government's fight against the North Vietnamese was being paid by them? Probably not. Another interesting thing, the North and South Vietnamese, both sides, they all pretty much saw the French as occupiers, and they did not like them. And they talked to, in this, I know we're not talking to every person in Vietnam, so they're probably cherry-picking some people to get the story they want. But when the French left and the Americans hit the beach, here are the Marines, we're here to save you. A lot of the South Vietnamese were like, we just got rid of these guys. Now we got to get you guys? So they saw them as invaders and occupiers also. So there was a lot of angst there. Right? Of course, we knew better. Americans knew better because we're fighting the commies everywhere we can turn and fight them. I just thought that was interesting. They, because they talked to some of them, and even one woman was a daughter of a South Vietnamese official. Her dad was ultimately murdered by the North Vietnamese. But she said, a lot of us saw Americans coming in here as occupiers. And that reminded me of a story about the Philippines. When the Spanish controlled the Philippines, the Filipinos wanted the Spaniards out. They saw them as occupiers, which they were. They're colonists. And so when America comes in and frees the Filipinos, especially 100,000 of them who decided that they didn't like Americans being there either, so they killed them. That's the easiest path to freedom I found. Apparently, as far as the American government's concerned. So they kill 100,000 of them and move in and say, you should love us now because we freed you. Filipino people looked at the Americans as occupiers. And much so the same as the South Vietnamese saw the Americans as occupiers. They're like, we don't want you here. And if you look at it, the American government, the support for the Southern Vietnamese government, they supported the biggest pieces of crap they could find. These guys were murderers. They were thieves. They were lying pieces of crap. They were dirty rat dogs. It was like they plucked them right out of Washington, D.C. and put them right in South Vietnam. So, you're trying to get these South Vietnamese to help you fight the North Vietnamese. And the dudes in the South that are the politicians, the leaders of the country, supposed leaders of the country. The leaders were the ones that were out in the villages leading their village. But you know what I mean. The politicians were just rats. All they were doing was stealing money as fast as they could go. And they murdered whoever they could murder, Anyone that was got in their way. So you're trying to get the South Vietnamese to fight for you, help you out. And they're like, yeah, but you're occupiers. And believe it or not, but the North Vietnamese look like us. And we're actually the same families here and there. And the people that you're propping up in our government really suck. So, just a really odd, crazy ordeal. And man, I hope nobody listened and voted for Johnson back then, because that guy was a dirty rat dog. That guy should have been hung up, strung up. That guy was a traitor, an American traitor. He really was. Not in the sense that, like, they said that Trump's a traitor for talking to Putin. Trump's actually treasonous right now. That's just stupid. Now, I'm talking Johnson. That guy really was a traitor. They knew they weren't going to win. It was all about the re-election. Well, we get to listen to the taped conversations now. Or he's talking to McNamara. And this is something interesting, too, and maybe people that were alive back then might have a different, or went through it, might have a different idea on it. But from what I got out of it, in the later 60s, McNamara was just done with it. He wanted to get out, it seemed to me. And I know he's not looked on very favorably, which I'm not giving any favorable review of him, but it did seem like he was done, was like, we just got to cut and run. And Johnson, just for political gain only, was like, he just played around. He didn't go full-scale war, did a little bit, but he didn't want to pull out. We'll just send another 200,000 people over there to get blown up and murder a bunch of other people and, death and destruction. And now you get to hear it all on tape, their conversations. And he knew. The guy knew. And he just kept doing it. All for his political gain. Then, of course, he decides not to run for re-election. It's like, what in the Sam Hill's going on around here? And the dick gets elected. So, actually, that's where I'm at in the story right now. I can only think of Cheney's name. Richard Nixon. Nixon gets elected, so that's where I'm at in this series. Really interesting. Maybe on the break I'll look it up and give you a name of it if anyone's interested in watching it. Because I think if you're into history at all, if someone was actually from the era, maybe went to Vietnam or something, I'd be interested. Wouldn't want to put them through having to watch it, but I'd be interested to see what their conversation would be about it. Because, it's a lot different watching something not being there and then getting something from somebody that was. It reminds me of, I think it was about 6 years ago during the 4th of July. I remember Steve Floyd had told, I was out of town catching some halibut. We raked him too. Oh, it was great. But Aaron was here and he did the show, and it was over the 4th. And over the 4th of July weekend, whatever, may not have been the 4th of July. And I remember Steve Floyd said, let's not do it because no one ever calls. No one listens on 4th of July weekend. And Aaron brought up the Korean War. And, man, he got blasted. Not blasted, but the phone just lit up. And he was talking about Korea and Vietnam, both. He actually had a Korean War vet call in, and he shared a little bit about that, and that was pretty amazing. And some Vietnam vets. It's in our archive somewhere. I'll probably find it. In fact, I may find that and put it up on our blog, like put it to the top. I remember listening to it, and it was just like, whew, it was a good show. And afterwards, Steve was like, I can't believe this. He said, we never get any calls or anyone even listening on over the 4th. And they had just piled the whole time. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool. But anyway, my point about this whole thing is just the fascination that this, it kind of makes sense with the movement then, the anti-war movement is like, did these people know that it was a joke? Or did they know that Johnson knew he was full of crap? I don't think, and I don't know this, but I don't think it was known that the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag then. I don't know when that was, I don't know when that was actually known to be a false flag event, the Gulf of Tonkin, because it's been a false flag event ever since I have remembrance of wanting to know things like that, if that makes sense. So I don't know that during the late 60s and 70s, during the anti-war movement, the hippie movement and all that, if Gulf of Tonkin was known to be a false flag, didn't happen the way they said it happened, all that, just to get into the war, get support for the war in Vietnam. But really interesting, really, the guy's just a dirty rat, Johnson. One of the things they were worried about, too, is like, because he has his programs, his social programs, which was billions of dollars, and the war was affecting that because they were spending so much money on the war. They actually had conversations, you get to listen to it, where they're like, spending a lot of money over there, not to mention the thousands dead. Nah, don't worry about that. Not to mention the thousands dead. But they were worried about the monetary cost, which was also a political cost, because Johnson was pretty set on his social re-engineering of America and the money that it took for all his programs. The war on poverty. So he was fighting 2 wars. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it just boggles my mind. So I guess that's kind of what I'm doing is correlating that or putting all the dots together with, what they've done in the past, Johnson. And then fast forward to today. They're still doing the same things. You have your false flag events. You have your 30-some percent. There was still a lot of supporters of the Vietnam War. Don't get me wrong. People. And this documentary goes over that a lot. That, the people that are marching. You have your John Wayne movies, Green Berets. I remember watching that. And that was a propaganda movie to get support, and John Wayne was in full support of the Vietnam War, which irritates me about John Wayne now. Come on, John, jeez. But they do the same thing now. What they don't come up with anything new. I guess it's like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, right? And you still had, I don't know what the support was. It was probably around 37% even then. But, you have nicely dressed kids with their parents who are nicely dressed, holding signs up, for the war. Be an American. If you don't like it, leave. Love it or leave it. Arr. Try to kill as many people as you can. If you don't like to kill people, what's wrong with you? You're un-American. Arr. And then you got the scuzzy... dirty hippies on the other side. Not wanting to go to war. Interesting fact, too. I don't know how he came about it, but I think the Donald got, he's old enough to have been in the war, but somehow he got a deferment, much like George W. Bush. He joined the National Guard and flew airplanes around, so he wouldn't have to go. Yeah, so the government never learns, but they don't have to because the people never learn, if that makes sense. They just kind of keep going right along with, so heck, why should they even try to do something different? It keeps working. Anyways, don't know if you're interested in the Vietnam War, but it's, well, I know a lot of people that listen are a little bit older and probably lived through it, so there's some of my take on it and just trying to learn more about it. Like I said, I wasn't, I can't get the real oofta of it because I wasn't alive, right? But this documentary is making a pretty good run at showing me what it was like. And whenever I research history, read history, watch history, or something like that, I try to put myself in the shoes, try to be there at the time, go back in time. I don't go into trance or anything crazy. I just try to, even both sides. While I'm watching that, I'm thinking, what were this going through the supporters' minds? What was going through the anti-war people's minds? What was going through Johnson's mind? Besides re-election, and he's a dirty, rotten rat. Yeah, who cares what he was thinking? All right, got to take a break and catch you on the other side here. This is Patriot Lament. Take calls, open up the phone lines, because I'm all be myself today. Be right back.
Lord, I've never lived where churches grow. I love creation better as it stood. That day you finished it so long ago, and looked upon you work and called it good. I know that others find you in the light that sifted down through tinted window panes, and yet I seem to feel you near tonight in this dim, quiet starlight on the plains. I thank you, Lord, that I'm placed so well, that you have made my freedom so complete, that I'm no slave to whistle, clock, or bell, nor weak-eyed prisoner of Waller Street. Just let me live my life as I've begun, and give me work that's open to the sky. Make me a partner of the wind and sun, and I won't ask a life that's soft or high. Let me be easy on the man that's down. Let me be square and generous with all. I'm careless sometimes, Lord, when I'm in town, but never let 'em say I'm mean or small. Make me as big and open as the plains, and honest as the horse between my knees, clean as the wind that blows behind the reins, free as the hawk that circles down the breeze. Forgive me, Lord, if sometimes I forget. You know about the reasons that are hid. You understand the things that gall or fret. Well, you knew me better than my mother did. Just keep an eye on all that's done and said, and right me sometimes when I turn aside, and guide me on that long, dim trail ahead that stretches upward toward the great divide. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie. These words came low and mournfully from the pallid lips of a youth who lay on his dying bed at the close of day. Oh, bury me not, and his voice failed there, but we took no heed to his dying prayer.
That wasn't very nice.
In a shallow grave, just 6 by 3, we buried him there on the lone prairie.
That is the great Johnny Cash. I hope you like that song. I sure do. I actually really like that song. That version, especially with Johnny. All right, phone number is 907-458-8255. And if you don't hear yet, we're on 97.5 FM now also. Be interested if someone's listening to that station to call in and say, how's it sound and how you're doing. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in.
Hello, is this me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, coming in pretty good.
Good.
How come you're on 97.5 now?
It's on 97.5 and 660. Apparently.
Always?
Yep. From here on out.
Here on out. I just discovered a second. Yes, earlier you wanted to understand or learn a little bit about the Vietnam War.
Yes, sir.
And talk to people that were there on the ground.
Yep.
Bullets flying past their ears. Bullets going away and coming. And to tell what was going on. I'm wondering, maybe you could do the reverse coast to coast and let you ask the questions. What do you think of that?
I wouldn't mind.
What do you want to know?
Well, were you there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Anything else?
Do you mind talking about it?
I don't mind. It's been 40 years. I've dealt with it.
Yep.
I've made my peace with God. I'm a reformed warmonger. I followed the Lord when I was going over there, and I worried every day about losing my soul. Well, that's just me.
Sure.
But do you ever watch the movie Platoon?
Yes.
You'll notice in that there's something accurate, pretty accurate, painfully accurate. There was conflict between Americans there were one kind of American and another kind of American.
Really?
That was really accurate. You should see that again. Because it reverberates to this day.
See, I didn't know that. I've seen it a few times. I just assumed that was for the movie, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing that keeps those in that Vietnam era from really... World War II, they had a common enemy, and no matter who was good and who was bad, they had a common enemy. But I felt a conflict between one another. One kind of America and another kind of America. I don't know, that's just my feeling. But it divided us, from the Vietnam vet standpoint. I don't know what was going on outside in the civilian world. Probably people doing this and that. But it was my experience that I was just a 19-year-old. I think I turned 20 over there.
Were you drafted?
No, I enlisted.
Okay.
Took a 3-year, but I only served about 2.5. But I had a year of college first. And it's just, I don't know, it was one of those things. I just had to be there. I didn't really know what was going on. My dad he did his World War II in the belly of a tin can out in the Pacific somewhere.
Wow.
And his battle station was below decks, way below deck. So his battle was, if we get hit, I die.
Right.
He never saw a gun. He was an electrician's mate or something like that. But my dad's experience was my dad's. My dad said, this is not a war you should be in. he, was against his judgment. I just have to do this anyway, and I don't really know what I'm getting into. The story Platoon, I think, mirrored a lot of what I felt, because the story is the guy doesn't know what he's getting himself into.
Right.
And he goes through this experience and that experience. He starts to view what the rest of the sampling of the rest of the country is like. And some of it's not so good.
Yep.
But these divisions got carried with us for 40 years. And to this day, I can't march in a parade or stand next to a Vietnam vet or any of that stuff. You just let them do what they want to do.
Yep.
Let them think the way they want to think. If they want to think they're a hero, that's fine. Let them wear their medals. Let them do what they want to do. I'm going to live with what I have and then watch.
Did you have friends or family that went before you went over? I mean, is that part of it?
No, I was the oldest of 12.
Okay.
See, you had a small family.
Yeah. We were.
I had, but I had the experience, I went as a Christian, and I guess that was, during a time when, I won't mention any denominations, but they were telling me, get out there and kill a commie for Christ. Now, that had a big effect on me, because I didn't see that in the book anywhere. No. But at the same time, that was the thing that was kind of pushing me that way. And I was just a 19, 20-year-old taking what people told me to do.
Sure.
And trying to decide for myself where, what direction I should be taking in this. But that's basically it. The rest of it's observation. And then, over the course of years, seeing who was lying and who wasn't.
Right. Did you go early in the war or towards the later end?
I was there in 70.
Oh.
It was after the Tet offensive.
Yeah.
And if you probably don't, most people don't know the history of that. But there was more than one Tet offensive. There was the Tet offensive, there was the Easter offensive. There was like 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you saw that movie Hamburger Hill.
Yep.
Well, I was in preparations for one of those. Hamburger Hill was an attack. There was 11 attacks on Hamburger Hill.
Wow.
And I was on the preparatories on one of them, but I got wounded before the main attack. I only lasted 11 months. But I spent 6 months down in the Iron Triangle, out there as in the infantry.
Wow.
So I got both barrels.
Yeah.
I got the fighting the Viet Cong at night, and I got fighting the North Vietnamese at night. One up by Laos in the A Shaw Valley, and the other one down with the 25th Division. The Electric Strawberries. You ever hear of them?
No.
We call them the Electric Strawberry. We made up names for our patches.
Sure.
And those were the 101st Airborne up north. We call that the Puking Chicken. So we got our own little gallows humor names for things.
Yeah.
But we let the American government and the military do their thing. We did our thing.
Right.
What are they? Kind of questions you got?
Well, I thought it was interesting from what I gathered watching this documentary. It's really interesting what you're saying about Platoon, though, because like I said, I just assumed it was a Hollywood movie.
No, I could sit down with you and watch it frame by frame on the video, and I could explain what's going on. I could even tell you about the smells and the sounds and what they're doing and all the little side things that are going on.
Yeah.
I was a radio man there too, so I had access to what was really going on in the radio.
Wow.
That was one of my. We kind of switched duties. We didn't all do one thing.
Well, one of the things on this documentary that I watched, I noticed that there seemed, especially later on, be a lot of frustration with the American soldiers taking a hill, leaving. I mean, spending 2 weeks of just
which hill?
Just various different hills.
Oh, okay.
Taking weeks and so many of them getting wounded or killed and getting it, and then they come in, pick them up, carry them off, and the Viet Cong would just roll right back in. And the people they interviewed, they were just telling their frustration of why the heck did we do that? What was the point?
Yeah, Pork Chop Hill and the Korean War Pork Chop Hill story, was somewhat parallel to that. What I was observing on the ground, there were hills all over the place. Up in the Iron Triangle, there was something called the Black Virgin that was out in the distance there. We had air assault, and we'd see the Black Virgin out there, and we were headed towards it. So wherever that was, that was hilly up there, but it wasn't mountainous. The real hills were in the north up by Laos.
Okay.
See, the Hamburger Hill, I don't know if you'd ever be able to verify that, was actually in Laos.
Oh.
But my base was Fire Base Bastogne. That was the other side of the valley, and the other side of the valley of the Aishaw Valley. The Aishaw Valley flowed like northwest, I think, towards Quezon. We were south of Quezon. Then it took a left turn there and went into the Mekong River. So if I followed the river, I could end up back in the ocean.
Wow!
If I lived.
Did you see the movie They Were Soldiers Once and Young?
I think I saw that didn't register with me.
Okay.
I think it was a lot of, some of these things are like 90% propaganda,
right,
and 1% truth. Platoon they did that more carefully because they wouldn't publish that because there was so much truth in it, and it brought back, that was, this feeling inside of me is my American counterparts in the soldiery are just as likely to kill me as the enemy is.
Right.
Because the conflict was more so than the movie shows.
That's a book. I remember. I've read that book now.
Which one?
Platoon.
Yep. Yeah, it was a book, but the movie, that's probably easier on the eyes.
Sure.
Like my eyes are, I'm 68 now. My eyes I have to keep my reading down to the minimum.
Yeah. Well, what did you ever have, I assume, interaction with South Vietnamese villagers?
Yes.
And how did they come across to you?
Well,
because I was explaining some of this documentary, and some of the people, and not all, but some of the people they talked to, they saw the Americans as just another bunch of invaders. We got rid of the French, and now these.
Yeah, that's a longer story. It's good that we're talking in this medium because I can kind of bring it up as my limited memory will allow, me to have it. But I sat down with a Viet Cong defector. See, we had these things called, back in the Indian Wars, they had, Custer had his scouts.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was in a little group of 3, and one was me, and the other was a Viet Cong defector, and then there was a guy named Kia. He was a North Vietnamese captain defector, and this is like after the Quezon War. A lot of those guys surrendered during the Quezon War, and they turned into scouts.
That's interesting.
Well, I sat in every day. I watched them fix their little dinners. They went into the bushes and they took some stuff, brought it over, and they mixed it up with a little bit of our food, and then we sat. And they told me, not Kia, but the other one, he spoke better English, and he explained a lot of the political stuff to me. And the way he was relating is, it's unfortunate. He felt it was unfortunate that me as a young man would be there because the fight is between the Vietnamese.
Right. Interesting.
And it was basically, I would call myself, I fought in the Vietnamese Civil War, and I was on the losing side. That's, simple to me.
Right.
I don't know, military people may get all bent out of shape over it. But that's reality to me. The history is pretty much like our history. We were in the in the early days, English in the English. Okay, in the 1776 or whatever, English and English. That was a civil war to me.
Yeah.
And there was oppression going on from one sector to another sector, and so they got to getting pissed about it and did their whatever thing, and then they they decided they needed to make an adjustment with bullets. And this is where the Vietnamese did. But who's the fault? The fault is with the Vietnamese people, and the way he explained it. The Vietnamese people were selling out to the colonial interests, and they were oppressing their own people.
Right.
And I could make a list of the specifics, but you can go look those up yourself. There were Vietnamese oppressing the Vietnamese people. Now, the Americans and the French exasperated. They just made it worse because they put their people in, and then there was no way they could take the Vietnamese back again because they're fighting Americans to get their Vietnamese back again.
Well, that's kind of what I got from this documentary was that the Southern Vietnamese politicians were just dirty rats.
Yeah.
I mean, they were...
Well, it's pretty much look around today.
Well, yeah, they're not... Like I said, it's like they plucked them right out of D.C.
This country's doing pretty much the same thing. Right. It isn't to the point yet where everybody's starving because it's the oppression from one side to the other is so bad that half the country's ready to starve to death. The other half is doing fine, and they don't care because that's where Vietnamese were. Well, see, Vietnamese went through this 3 times. They went through this 3 times where part of their country sold out to another power and oppressed the other half, and they got it back again. With the French, of course, we provide 80% of the money, but it was the French doing all the dying,
right?
And they lost. Well, the French that's what colonizing is, dominating a people and oppressing them. Now, if you don't oppress them, you can turn into like Hawaii, okay, where everybody makes a buck. Well, then, okay, then at that point, it works out fine. But in Vietnam, the Viet Cong defector that I talked to, and I can't remember his name, he told me that they were raising rice, lots of it, because they could do like 3 crops. I don't know, a bunch of crops per year over there. And it was all being packaged up for export. And there wasn't enough rice being left behind for people to eat.
Oh.
And he said there was stuff like that going on. And, of course, when I was there, you think war is just bullets. Heck no. The currency system was screwed up. The transport system was screwed up. The power systems were screwed up. The government was screwed up. There's military everywhere. People were stealing from each other. It was like you'd never. The bullet part and the war part was just kind of a sidebar.
Right.
There was a real mess going on over there. But see, they saw it as an adjustment they had to make within their own country. And the pimps and the harlots, they wanted to join up with the Americans, and good, take them back to America with you. But we want to hash this out for ourselves and do what we want to do as Vietnamese, which is, eat duck eggs and cook the stuff that we want to cook.
Right.
We maybe don't want your McDonald's. And we don't care if we just have one railway.
Right.
Okay? But they had a fight between each other for this. And it was unfortunate. There had to be a lot of dying that went on to make that adjustment. And they didn't like it either. And they had the same problems with cowardice that we did. Okay? And, it's a scary thing. I even see the word militia and I shake my head and say, don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I see it's not just, I've studied wars, I guess, I don't know. That's my thing. I study history of wars, all wars. Foreign, domestic, anything. If I hear about a new one, I go, hey, got to find out something about that one. But the Civil War, there's a lot of that stuff going on. People oppressing people. Militias oppressing people. They had to keep Confederate, so they had to punish the people that were, not going down their way.
Right.
And then the North, they couldn't have Confederates running around preaching Confederatism.
Right.
So they had to go deal and then mess their business up and do something. And the Vietnamese was no different. So they basically, they got their guns from the communists, so they were communists.
Ah, okay.
That's basically it.
That
But
makes
what
sense.
he described to me as far as politics, he didn't have a lot of politics. He was a farmer. He just, warfare is what he had left to do because there weren't any other options. But they got good at fighting us. They were there like for the duration.
And it kind of affected, from what I know or what I assume, it looks like it affected everyone in the country. Like there weren't villages that were left alone. I mean, everyone seemed to be impacted.
Yeah, I don't
one way
know.
or the other.
My view there was, from down the barrel of my gun.
Yeah.
And I could see stuff going on. Now, the villages, we didn't go to too many villages. There was one where we had the I don't know if we want to say who, but they come along with us and, pass out a few vaccinations, and then we go back to fire base, and then next thing I know, I hear the cannons firing, and they fired on they obliterated the village that we were just at. Can you explain that one?
Yeah.
See, all I can see is what's down the end of the barrel of my gun, and I was just there. And what's all this firing? And then they say where it's going to. So what's this going over there doing vaccinations on people, and then leveling the place with artillery?
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, but if you look at My Lai massacre, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, because that's just the way we were. I mean, you look at the facts. I'm not making any opinions here, but this is kind of like what America is kind of evolved into. I don't know what other way to explain it, because I was a kid, I was a teenager. You got teenagers, don't you?
Yep.
They don't have a lot of sense, do they?
No.
They just kind of float along with things.
Yep.
But anyway, I was there. I observed it, and I was, a Christian. I had prayed since a youth, and I was concerned about keeping my soul through all this nonsense. So
was your time spent there what led you to be anti-war later?
Well,
or
the anti-war
did you turn
question,
that way while you
because
were there?
I remember I simultaneously studied warfare, because it says that there'll come a time when they study warfare no more. Well, yeah, you can understand that time when the person there has eliminated all the weapons and everything, and there's no more people left to do that sort of thing. In the meantime, it's a great way to learn about people and about what people do, like lie badly. Okay, so you can't learn that if you don't study the situation. So the situation usually is that kind of a situation where you can learn things. But the war itself, I struggled for a long time on whether God the Father of Heaven, Mass, the Lord of Hosts, was a pacifist or not. Well, I got the answer question. I didn't get too far into the book before I see, no, he's no pacifist. On the other hand, he's not Mengele, or he's not a mass murderer either. He has his own plan. But the people found it necessary to fight for various reasons. But that's not the sum of the fact that for everybody to go around killing everybody all the time for any reason, not even a business reason. You're making pretty good money at your business. Well, if somebody interferes with it, we shouldn't send somebody over there to wipe them out, so your business does better.
No.
Well, that that sort of thinking is easy for you, but there's people in the world who think that's perfect, makes perfect sense.
Right.
And this is what we're dealing with, and we're not dealing with things far beyond our pay grade, far beyond your pay grade, far beyond my pay grade. All we are on this earth is an observer. We have our personal things that we have to follow in our own conscience.
Yep.
Okay? That's really all we can do. I can be as good a person as I can, make the choices that I think I can account for later. But as far as what you do, that's up to you.
Right.
If I can walk with you, I can walk with you. If I can talk with you on the telephone, that's great. If I can't, I can't.
Well, I think we've done pretty good.
If you have exhausted your questions.
No, I could probably sit here for the next 3 or 4 days, really. I mean, really.
I don't know. I wonder if the
all of them could
Vietnam
be
vets
asked
out
on.
there are listening into some of this.
Well, I hope so. I mean, and I'm being sincere, too. I don't want to say I love history of war because that might sound a little crazy, but it's one, I love history, and warfare is something that's a part of man's history. And my grandfather was in World War II, and actually the last time I got to see him a couple of years ago, he's 90-something now, 92 or 3. And for the first time, it really kind of opened up to me about the war. He was in the Pacific, and he was in the Battle of Okinawa. And then,
ooh, that's a bad one.
Yeah, and my goodness, they were, both sides, they were raunchy bad.
Yeah, yep.
They hated each other. And, you know, he broke down a few times when he's talking, and he went on some little cleanup missions with Marines, and he actually had a little bit of change of heart because he said that they caught some prisoners, and they never made it quite back to the prisoner roster.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah. And then because he said they just hated him so much because their friends had got killed and, you know, things like that. And then he said when he was actually in the first wave of people that got to go into Japan after the war, and he said he just cried and cried when he met the people because he thought, oh my gosh, these people are humans.
Yeah, I have that feeling too. I mean, I don't care about any of my battle zones, but there's something in me that wants to go back and talk to some of the sons and daughters, if they had any, because a lot of them were young people just like me. They didn't have a chance to chat and have a family. A lot of guys even died in my arms. They weren't reached 17 yet. But they sent someone, the government sent them down there to fight us for 10 years or whatever, and they never came back. Yeah. And I like to go and, you know, just something in me wants to be comforting, and that some of us didn't really want this to happen, that we just got stuck with it. And
yeah.
It was all a big unfortunate. It wasn't a mistake. There was somebody who was orchestrating this thing, and I hope they're burning nice and hot somewhere. That's all I can say.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
But in the meantime, the experience tended to turn me into a machine, an awful person that would have a hard time living with himself the rest of his life. I was fortunate in that I woke up early in my 11 months and said, And I'm just saying, You know the feeling?
Mm-hmm. Probably not to that extent, but I know what you mean.
Kill that person, okay? I point my gun at him and I shoot. But it's me who points that gun.
Right.
And I can shoot the bullets over his head as many times as I want to. Okay? But it's me in my head that chooses to kill a man. So I just did what I did. Yep. And I have to stand before the Lord and account for all this. So I'm going to do what I want to do.
Well, you said at the beginning of your call that you're at peace with yourself now.
Yes, I am at peace before the Lord, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's open to anyone.
Yep.
And that really doesn't come from me, and it doesn't come from your minister, and it doesn't come from you. It doesn't come. It comes from you getting on your knees before the Lord of hosts and taking it up with Him, and then let Him do the adjustments.
So was that hard?
Yes.
You don't mind asking?
Yes. Yes, because that warfare is not just an endeavor; it's a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
David, they depict like this David, existed back in the old Jewish days. He was doing hand-to-hand combat with bears, and
yeah,
remember that?
Yeah.
And then, boy, he must really love sheep. And it says sheep are farm animals. He probably had a sheep for dinner, right?
Yep.
And was probably eating cold cuts while he was out there watching the sheep. No, he didn't love sheep. He was a man that learned to live his life with courage. there's people who walk around and live their lives in fear all the time. Fear of the government, fear of this, fear of that. But David, I will not fear. I will fear no evil. See, that's something in your mind that says, I will be this way. And then you act it out the rest of your life. And that's the way David was the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with people, you do that. And David had to engage in lots of this fighting stuff. And it does something to you. It puts a spirit in you. It puts the memories, and it's a torturous experience, and it stays with you. And that's the part that has to be reconciled. So that's when you call the process of redemption. That's what that is. You're dealing with yourself and your own mind and your own wrongs in continuous fashion. So the next time that you're in a situation where you need to, you want to do something you know you shouldn't, you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you let yourself die even if you need to. You let yourself get beat up. Let yourself get oppressed. Because forgiving is what he wants you to do.
Yeah.
So you take on your ways. Well, I have my own story, and I don't want to get into that part of it. But the message is simple. It only takes an hour to read. I got a little children's Bible, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's red letter. And I just read the red letter part. I just skip all the rest of the story, and I just do a quick read on just the red letter stuff. And that takes about an hour in one gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just do that.
Some pretty good stuff there, the red stuff.
And I'm just the red letter stuff. And I know the rest of the story anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, this is what you want me to do. This is how you want me to think. And he said, the wise ones are the ones who do this stuff. Okay, so he's taken me step by step by step over the past 30 years. And there's more. But it's nothing magical. It's something pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's other people have made it too complicated. I think that's what they're talking about with the leaven and the Pharisees. Leaven is you have a pile of dough there, and it's really a simple little pile of dough until you put leaven in it.
Right.
Then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Then it turns into something, a huge mass, a lump. But it's actually something very small. So, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
I was just thinking about something when you were talking about it being a spirit when you're in war. And David was the warrior, and that was the reason, when
he chose to engage the fight.
Yeah.
I bet you he was patrolling around the animals, looking for anything that was because he wanted to engage the battle.
Well, and remember, he wasn't allowed to build the temple because of his warfare.
I think that was kind of left out. He did something with Moses too. Moses struck the rock twice.
Yeah.
Well, you remember he was in the garden. He was having a conversation with Moses. He didn't hate Moses because he struck the rock.
No.
Moses had his time of testing. Abraham had his 12 tests and trials. Okay, Every one of them. Job has his. And, everybody had theirs, and David had his. And his was one. He wanted to build a temple. Well, God said, "No, you're not." And David had to say, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
I'll gather up some money and I'll tax some people and we'll get some people ready, but it's not mine to be. My life, is full enough.
Yeah.
So, and that, you and me, it's the same thing. I don't really want to go through this again. You came over and you raised me from the dead, I'd say, you dirty rat.
Yeah,
I don't want to go through this and die again.
I hear that.
There's been wonderful things. I can just tell you a very simple thing. I was in one of 100 times in a unit where there was only 12 of us left breathing.
Wow.
And we're wondering how many more minutes are we going to still be alive. I won't even discuss the situation. Everything was going on. Everything, helicopters falling out of the sky. Everything was crap. That's all I could say. But you know what? In 7 years from that time, I sat with a child in my arms crying. So if that isn't redemption, if that isn't mercy of the Lord, good. you can doubt and debate all you want. To me, that's a miracle.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
He took me out of that mess and put me on a path. So I only had 4 kids, so I only did half as good as you. But I know what you got because my dad struggled with 12. I watched his fight.
Yeah, 12.
He didn't need to fight no war. He had us.
Constant battle.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is interesting medium. And just, I never thought to do anything like this. I just picked it up and said, looks like there's some dead air. I'll just call Josh and see what he wants to talk about.
Well, I sure am glad you did. And it's, I know it's not an easy thing to do. And I hesitated.
With some people it is because they have many regrets.
Yeah.
There's some people who can't hear children cry because they killed so many of them. So, what do you think of that?
That's part of the dead air was I hesitated to ask.
You won't get a lot because there's either tremendous anger and regret, or there's tremendous shame, or there's tremendous something. You know, look at the story of Platoon. What if you went through that?
Oh, I never want to. Never want my kids to go through it.
See, I'm from a generation where at least this is just me. I'm not making anybody's mind up for them. They can think about themselves how they want. But I'm not from a generation that fought a holy war or a war against oppression or Nazis or anything else.
Right.
I was just someone who got stuck in a situation, and I could have ended up like, I don't know, Hezekiah.
Yeah.
187,000 troops dead overnight. Dead. Gone. Laying there, rotting corpses. That's what military can go that quickly. When the Lord wants you dead, you're dead. So,
was there a lot of angst over being sent? I mean,
angst over what?
When you were there, did you eventually, and folks you were with, did you start to wonder what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah. This is the part of the conflict that was going on. Because you'd have to you've got to watch that Platoon. See, most people, the movie goes by in what, an hour?
Yeah, it's short.
It's packed real good with the stuff, but you'd never pick it out. If I sat there and I could explain, I'd have to keep stopping the tape and explain to you what's going on, and that would take probably 3-4 hours if you got the patience.
Oh, I would.
And that's the short version.
I'll make the popcorn.
That's the short version. I don't have a problem with that now at 68 because the Lord has healed my mind, healed my heart, give me peace. You can't take it away from me.
Was some of the interfighting with the Americans, infighting, was some of that because was that mostly from people that volunteered versus
No, there was a mixture. It tended like my platoon was, my platoon, which platoon, and after how many casualties, because there was always replacements coming, there was always people leaving in body bags and coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe half were minorities, more than half. I think one group, or 3/4 of us were from non-Americans. But it depended on which platoon you were in and what you were doing. But
so it wasn't necessarily, well, we don't like you because you're a draftee, you don't want to be here. Well, I volunteered. Well,
the guy in the character that was there did volunteer.
Right.
But volunteer for what? You don't know what you're volunteering for.
Right.
You think people think that you go out there and you're doing stuff. You basically, the officers have pistols, and those pistols are not to shoot the enemy with.
Right. They're to shoot their men. If
you don't close your file and go to where we tell you to go, that pistol comes out. When that wounded guy is in the kill zone in front of you, you don't ask for volunteers. Okay, you're the closest one to you don't even explain it. He just points to you, and then points to where the guy is screaming in the kill zone, and the guy puts his gun on and he crawls over there, grabs him, and then drags him back to where the medic can get at him. Well, that's just the way it is. So it's nothing pretty about it.
No.
So what do you have to complain about? We're trained together. These guys that say, like, oh, 9 of my buddies died. Shoot, how long does it take you to make a buddy? Those guys would show up, be there for 2 or 3 months, and then be dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, buddies. You had a bad experience together, but that doesn't make you a buddy.
No, I see what you're saying for sure there.
Yeah, and it's just in draftee, non-draftee, you're there. Do you know that I could have left the first day out there? Just put my pistol between my boot, between my big toe and my next toe over, right at that place there, and just pull the trigger and put the little hole in your boot, your foot about the size of a quarter, and I'll never walk very good again, but I won't be dead. I'll just be carried off to some ward somewhere in a hospital ship.
And that happened, didn't it?
I spent 2 weeks on the hospital ship USS Sanctuary off the Da Nang over there. I was recovering from my massive infection. I almost lost my arm. But I was in my ward there. It was like most of the guys in that ward there had foot wounds. That's a long story there. I don't want to get into that. But yeah, there's lots of them. But some of them, they just got high on drugs, and then they were just put in Long Bin jail. And that got them out of the action.
Oh.
So everybody had their own way of dealing with it. And I saw, and see, but some guys just leaned up against the tree in the jungle and just shot themselves in the head. So we had to bury his equipment. And basically, he's still out there, leaning by that tree and probably eaten by the lions, by the Bengal tigers. Probably had him for dinner. He was never seen again.
Wow.
You getting in and getting out of there. The terrain out in the Laotian area was horrendous. I mean, that's one thing they showed in the Hamburger Hill movie. Yeah, it was that bad.
And we supposedly were never there.
Yeah, supposedly we were never there. See, I'm not a Vietnam vet. I'm a Cambodia, Laotian, Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
I had my blood dripping in all 3 places that I was watching. Now, not badly, otherwise I'd be dead.
Mm-hmm.
But it's enough to know I was bleeding there. So, different types of things that were happening to us out there.
Yep.
Anyway,
wow.
Not a good experience. Not one that it kind of messes your mind up. Yeah, and plus I had some brain damage too from the several times I got blown up. Once almost killed. So you dash your brains up against a tree. Let's see how clearly you think for the next 10 years.
Yeah, probably not good on you.
Yeah, not too good.
Yeah, they talk about football players getting that brain damage. I think concussions from bombs and such.
Yeah, you can get it from chasing your moose through the woods too. If you happen to slip in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's true. This is a lot more fun.
What did we do? Kill a whole hour here?
Yeah, I really appreciate your time here.
No, it's my time. You got my number on your board over there. If you want to chat, I'm free.
Well, I appreciate that.
Just, you got to understand that I am 68 and I'm going through what I'm going through, but I still have my helpmeet by my side here. And Big Brother hasn't banged on my door and shot me yet, so I guess I'm still available.
Yeah.
But I will fear no evil.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it again, and God bless you, man. I'm glad to hear that you've been able to overcome it.
I'm glad to see you're still on the air. March on.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Whew, wow. Well, that was amazing. I guess I asked and I got it. Ask and you shall receive. That's what that was. Thank you very much. Yeah. Which is why I don't want my boys to go through that ever. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hi, Josh. This is Eve once more.
Hi, Eve. How are you?
Yeah, not since a long time, right?
Yes.
I want to appreciate the previous caller with and congratulate him with his wisdom. I call that really wisdom. And as he was speaking, I picked up a book that had been recommended to me by a Vietnam vet, and it is called Street Without Joy, The French Debacle in Indochina, written by Bernard B. Fall, F-A-L-L, who died in 1967, but had already also published several other books. And as I also have become a history fan and war history fan, and knowing that there is so much now available on YouTube as far as documentaries, I wanted to add to part of this whole story what we forget so easily, that post First World War, the factions that are playing chess, if you will, political chess, for, I don't know how to pronounce that word, hegemony or power of parts of the globe, were, after all, between the Russians, which became the Soviet system, and the capitalists, if you will, which were the United States and Western Europe. And of course, the whole societies as we had known it before then began to fall apart. So he was right in saying it's always the social upheaval that precedes and eventually the coming to the top of certain power figures who often begin with well-educated backgrounds, such as Pol Pot once upon a time, and after all, Lenin and Stalin. Well, Stalin, let's omit him because he was not too well-educated. But there were always doctrines and ideologies preceding the events that then began to happen. And
Ho
then
Chi Minh was very educated. I think he went to school in France.
Exactly. And then I want to always draw a line towards the here and now. And my extreme worry has become the lack of historical know-how in our younger generations who no longer know what it was like during the Cold War, when these two ideologies were juxtaposed and were doing their utter best to gain ground, literally, such as getting African nation intellectuals or upcoming intellectuals to the United States and or to Moscow to indoctrinate either one in our system of thought or their system of thought to gain ground, because there was this strive to dominate. And after all, when we go back to Hitler with his idea of a 1,000-year-old power over the whole world, then I jump back to the future. Here we are going on the same route, because now we have devious globalists. We have George Soros, who has become a billionaire and who was a Jewish citizen of Budapest, and worked together as a kid with the Nazis to point out, or Vienna, maybe it was Vienna, to point out where the wealthy Jews were living in order for the Nazis, the SS, to go in, get them out, and pick up their wealth. And so now we still have George Soros, who's actually thinking he can complete where Hitler had to end, namely to create a world dominance of which ideology. This time it is yet again left extreme socialist thinking. Do away with nations, do away with nationalities, do away with culture, border, and language, and become now a bureaucratic system that can dominate the whole globe. That is what's happening. And now I fear for the media insults on our intelligence, media insult, and their mendacity and their incomplete reporting, but all from that same side, and I could say a lot more but won't, I have disconnected myself from TV. I no longer watch TV. I know what's happening on TV because I can read it on the internet, but it is a poisoning of our minds often to an extent that is frightening. On the internet, I watch the Dutch news, and I therefore hear more about the world and the rest of the world besides the United States. And I hear how the Dutch politicians, let's add Western European politicians, are now viewing the United States, how they interpret what's happening here, and it's all left extreme. All left extreme.
Which proves that the younger generations today don't know history, because you see the rise of democratic socialism, and they're communist, and they obviously don't know what communism is, or they would despise it.
Exactly, and it sounds so lovely when they can't even define. If you ask them, well, what do you think socialist theory is? What does it mean? Oh, it feels good. It feels good because we all need to help each other, and we are all equal. No, we are not all equal. We are equal under God, if you will, under the law, if you will, but not even that. But we all have to develop ourselves, just like the previous caller was indicating. It rests upon your and my and anybody else's shoulders to become a person with and develop his or her own possibilities. And then, with your previous caller, I want to also say it is wonderful to be at peace with yourself, finally, and then to see what a miracle life, God-given life is.
Yep.
A miracle.
Yep, that was the best takeaway from the call.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to hang up. So I can highly recommend Street Without Joy by Bernard B. Fall with F-A-L-L, and I got it in Barnes & Noble, and at times I look at it again, but of course we can enrich his statements with everything on the internet and YouTube, but the previous person should go around schools and because he speaks so well and so clearly.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Bye, Josh.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
All right. I'm going to take a quick little break here. Anytime she calls, I want to listen to some classical music. So I'm going to take a quick break while I play this, and I'll be right back. Oh, of course, it had to be this too. I love my favorite part. good. I tell you what, right now, I think it's safe to say that Bach would be quite proud of him. Yeah. All right. This is Patriot Lament. My name is Joshua Bennett. Remember, we're at 97.5 FM now also. 660 is not going away. Just also. Which I'm thinking that song right there probably sounded pretty good on the FM dial. So we got one more hour here. Our phone number is 907-458-8255. And we got some callers here to take. Man, I love doing this show because I get to do the things I want to do that, you know, you can't just call up and a radio program and say, hey, will you talk to a Vietnam vet for an hour? But anyways, and then get people to call in to recommend good books and good opinions. Let's get back to it. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hello.
Hi, Cecily. How are you today?
I'm close to tears from listening, but
yeah, I was too.
I have my good friend Leonard E. Payton wrote a poem in 1975 called "The Case of the Missing Purpose," and this is what he went through after he almost got he got injured and his leg was getting gangrene because they were doing the exact opposite of what it was to be healing him. And his mom met him at the airport, and she had a camera with her, and she just hid the camera because he looked so bad. But he wrote a poem. It's called "The Case of the Missing Purpose," and it goes like this. Eternity for nowhere's hope, agonizing empty slope, not to yield to up or down, endless, ne'er a title's crown. Innocent, pure, clear as water, witness to a vicious slaughter. Mind and body bent and broken, few as ever vainly spoken. Wishes to a higher order, swaying aft in grave disorder. Eloquence of a truthful martyr, eulogizing maimed and murdered. Gallant, yet at dawn retreating, taker of an august beating. Moon alight and flaming passion, sun destroys before a fashion. Prisons vile and castigating, residues of thoughtful hating. Tries in kind to see a light, wrestler of a seesaw plight. Nothing sorrow, nothing sad, no one's cause and nothing bad. Nothing, something must be now, yearn for surely furrowed brow. Never running, never cheating, never forward, not retreating. Gazing softly back, black and somber, try so hard but can't remember. Never present, never past, never future, first and last. That's by Leonard E. Payton. And
wow.
My brother's still suffering from Agent Orange sores oozing all over. He's 70. And he said that, he got the notice, and my husband said, yeah, your friends and neighbors have chosen you to represent them in the fight. And that's the letter they sent to people to draft. And I think that if you draft people, you're definitely going against their personal spirit and soul. And it's probably one of the biggest crimes that I've seen. And most of all of the men that were in my history were Vietnam vets, and there was a lot of sorrow and a lot of regret. And some of them made it through with drugs. Some of them made it through with the Bible and God. Some went to Zen and Buddhism, and they just tried to find a way to escape their experience. And whatever way they can do it, I understand. I remember coming from the laundry, and the backfire of a vehicle happened, and I was thrown to the ground and all the laundry everywhere to protect me from a bomb that they thought might happen. Woke up in the middle of the night being choked, and my friend had PTSD and thought he was right there again, and so it's a pretty hard thing. Besides the people that were in the middle of it, but the people that had to try to comfort that place without having any idea, with no tools and no understanding on how to deal with that, it just tears your heart out that you can't fix it. And only they can fix it, and some people it's just too big. And that's why so many vets took themselves out, because they just couldn't deal with it. And hopefully that when they took themselves out, they met God and were healed on the other side. And anyway, God bless you all, veterans. And I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. It's very hard to hug somebody who took themselves out. But I love you, and thanks for bringing it, because lots and lots are just sitting by themselves, and maybe that they had a chance to speak out about it. It might help their path to healing.
Mm-hmm.
God bless you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Cecily.
Do well.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, it definitely wasn't my intention to be, when I asked, I wanted to know more about it. I was being sincere and not insensitive to the realities of it all. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, I'm wondering how much of it had to do with gold, women, and drugs, and we're still feeling the after effects to this day. And I'll hang up and listen.
Well, what, the war, or?
Yeah, all of it back then, and then now it's kind of circling itself into today.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd know the answer to that.
Well, hopefully
question.
someone will call your show and explain it so I can understand better.
Yeah. Good question. Thanks, man. All righty. Okay, again, it's this is Patriot Lament. If you're first time, there might be new people listening since they're on FM and scrolling the dial. Our phone number is here 907-458-8255, and we pretty much just talk about whatever the heck we feel like talking about. I gently steer at times. Definitely steer at times. We're, ultimately the show's about, I don't even know. There's not one thing the show's about. Maybe there is. Point out the futility and evil of states. I had a friend of mine suggest to me, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, and it probably would never happen anyways, even because we've put the invitation out before, but he asked that I would ask the folks running for governor to come on the show and do little interviews of them. Imagine after the first one, no one else would, but I don't know. You guys think that's a good idea? I definitely would have a hard time. I could be civil, there's no doubt about that, but I couldn't just ask dumb questions and let them get away with dumb answers. Had to put them in the hot seat and try to destroy their political theology. All right, let's get back to the phones. Hello, caller. Thanks for holding.
Morning.
Morning.
Hey, I just want to call in after the last guy called in. There's 2 books out there by an author by the name of James Perloff.
Mm-hmm.
He's I guess what I would call a truth or history researcher, and he's got 2 books. One's called Shadow of Power, and the other one's called Truth is a Lonely Warrior.
Mm.
And they're both excellent in terms of explaining like the power structure behind, the military-industrial complex and why we've waged the wars we have. And he talks about all the stuff behind like World War II and stuff going all the way back to the sinking of the Maine and that created the Spanish-American War,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, and all the other wars that we've fought, and the real reasons behind everything we've done. Because not a single one of them were fought for the reasons that we've been told,
Right.
or the reasons that we were told in public schools for
What-
those of us who went to public schools.
What were they called again?
Shadow of Power and Truth is a Lonely Warrior. And the author's name is James Perloff. He's also got a couple of YouTube videos. One of them is by the same name of one of his books, Shadow of Power. It's about a 2-hour-long video. And it's kind of tip of the iceberg of his book compared to what's in his book. But it goes over a few of the things, like a lot of the stuff with Roosevelt and Pearl Harbor and part of the reasons we got into World War II and stuff like that. But anybody that just doesn't really understand any of that stuff very well, or anybody who thinks that, George Soros is the power behind all the chaos, he's really not. He's like a more or less a middle manager for these people that have been causing these problems long before he was born. The lineages of the people, and it all ties into the Federal Reserve, same families that who were the original shareholders in the Federal Reserve Bank. Everything ties into everything ties in together.
That's what has me worried about Iran, because there's no doubt that the U.S. dollar has global hegemony, whatever they call it, right? And being the oil dollar is very important to America. And I just saw that a day or two ago, maybe I don't remember when I read it, but Iran is actually starting a cryptocurrency to sell their oil. And, that does not bode well to America. We do not like people that go out like Saddam Hussein started selling oil for gold.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
And
yep.
bump. And so did old Gaddafi. And people never think about that. It's that petrodollar is so important to the American empire, the global hegemony of the empire, to have that. It's not a negotiable asset. It is you buy and sell oil using U.S. dollars, or we take you out, because they can't afford, because they're in so much debt.
Right.
There's no way they can afford it. They have to have the Federal Reserve has to have that. So when I read that, I was just like, oh yeah, we're going to war.
Right. Well, it's a huge Ponzi scheme. They got to keep adding new players to print the money for, to keep the pyramid scheme alive. And I think it's interesting how North Korea's rolled over now. I'm willing to bet a month's salary that North Korea will have a central bank sooner than later, the way they're rolling over now. Because, they didn't used to have, they don't currently have a central bank.
Right.
And now Trump's getting all this, all these concessions from them. I'm suspecting, it's my intuition telling me, I don't have any hard facts to base it on, but I'm suspecting that the reason is when they've met, they're negotiating on getting a bank set up.
Either a bank or maybe a loan from the IMF or something along those lines.
Yeah, something financial's probably going on there. But hey, I wanted to also ask you, you had a guy, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, but you had a guest on the show probably a couple months ago, and he talked a lot about what happened with the Department of Agriculture and the FDA and how they kind of killed the family farm in the United States. And he recommended a couple of books.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember who I'm talking about? I wrote down the name of the books that he recommended, and I lost the slip of paper I wrote it on. I was wondering if there's any way I could find.
I don't think that was Mayberry, was it? Because he just talked about schools the last time.
It wasn't Mayberry. He talked about stuff that I don't remember if Congress was involved. Well, obviously they did. There were some acts that got passed, and really what came out later was that they really intentionally tried to, like the government pretty much pushed the family farmer out in favor of corporate farms, and he had recommended some reading. And
maybe that was that Robert Wenzel?
I don't know.
I'll go back and look.
I came into the conversation late, and he hadn't been on there very long. I wasn't even sure if he wasn't a caller or if he was a guest. But he's very articulate, so I assumed he was he was a guest, not a caller. Not that some of the callers aren't very articulate, but
right. No, I remember the conversation, and I can't.
Are your guys' episodes logged? Can I go back and listen to episodes or not?
Yeah, they're on YouTube.
They are, all of them?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm a few behind right now, but yeah.
But like 2 or 3 months ago you'd have on there?
Yeah, and also on KFAR, if you go on KFAR.com or whatever, 660 KFAR, I think, and you hit audio archives, all of our archives, they only keep 6 months at a time, but they're all up on that also. The audio archives, and then we slowly get them put up on YouTube also. And then I even slowly put them up on the blog.
Right.
But we got them all the way back to 2011, I think, or I think that's when we started. Yeah, 11. Like I said, that one might not be up yet because I've been slacking the last few weeks. But
right, I was hoping you could just maybe tell me who that was or when that was, and ease my pain in trying to find it again. But I can go back.
I'll check it out. I'll tell you what. I'll check it out on because I do have everything on a hard drive. Everything. So I'll check out my hard drive and see if I can pick it out, and if I find it, I'll throw it up on the blog.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Great. Thanks.
Cool.
Have a good morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
bye. Yeah, I guess I don't ever mention that. We do have a YouTube channel. It's at Radio Free Fairbanks. How do you like that? On YouTube, you type in either Patriot Cement or Radio Free Fairbanks, and our archives are on there. And we have a blog, patriotcement.blogspot.com, where you can just Google Patriot Cement because we dominate that page. So, yeah. And I try to get, especially in the summertime, I get lazy and don't get the stuff up like I'm supposed to. Dave and I have conversations that we record every once in a while and post on the blog also, which are a little bit different than radio. But they're fun, interesting, maybe, to some folks. Obviously, no calling because we're just recording our phone conversation. And then I guess we have we have a Facebook page too. I just kind of forget about all that stuff. I just come on the radio, blah, blah, blah. Record my deal, take it home, forget about it. I do remember that conversation, though, and it was really good. So, but I'm starting to think it was a caller. I don't remember. I do got some folks trying to get lined up here. I'm hoping to get Scott Horton on to talk about a little bit about his, obviously foreign policy, but I'd like to pick his brain on his new book about Afghanistan. And Robert Wenzel, who I like quite a bit, he runs the Target Liberty and the Economic Policy Journal online. I'm hoping to have him on soon. He said he would talk about his new book. that he has, which is, I got it, and it's pretty fascinating. It's different. And Becky Akers has told me just name a time and she'll jump on too. So hopefully, I've kind of not put, these people have real lives, so they need a little bit of advance, and I haven't done it because I have another life too that's called reality outside the radio show. And as you well know, I'm not always sure I'm going to be here. And I don't want to set somebody up for a time and not know that I can make it. So that might be closer to fall, obviously, notwithstanding September moose season, which dominates my life. Or I dominate it. I don't know. Let's hit the callers. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Up next.
Yeah, you start doing stuff like that and they shorten moose season, you might lose listeners. I'm just saying. Okay, I was originally going to talk with three things real quick, but that was the fourth, so I'll just get that out of the way. Hey, I want to say thank you. You guys are on the FM now. My truck here at work does not get AM, and when I get from my pickup to my work truck, I have to go online and listen to you all day. Thank you. Secondly...
Awesome.
Yes, my kids hate it. My kids, they hate it when they're in my pickup. Yeah, can we listen to the... Can I turn? No, I'm driving. I control the radio.
Well, what do they like to listen to? Maybe I can play some bumpers for them.
They listen to the hip hop.
Oh, no, too bad.
Gee, there you go. Sucks to be young. Get a license, get your own vehicle, get a job.
There you
My son
go.
finally got his first job this summer, so he's
Awesome.
on the road. But the third thing that I was going to talk about is, it's off the topic what you guys are doing today, but I just want to say thank you about the FM station. Y'all out there driving with your cell phones and texting and everything, we see you. Knock it off. Knock it off. I almost got into a collision out there in North Pole. The guy was on his phone and crossed in front of me over there by Little Richard, and 51,000 pounds going 60 miles an hour, people.
Not easy to stop.
No. So, but no, I just want to say thanks. Keep up the good work, and you got a loyal listener here, and I'm trying to change 3 other sponge brains as best I can.
Right on, man. That's good.
All right.
That's good.
Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too, man.
Bye. Yeah, trucks don't stop real easy when they're loaded. And they don't stop real easy when they're empty. Sometimes they stop better when they're loaded. If that makes sense. Yes, it does. But I'm not going to get into that. Hello, caller. You are up next.
Hi, this is Randy.
Hi, Randy. How you doing today?
I appreciated that caller from your last hour talking about his experiences in Vietnam, and I appreciate all Vietnam veterans for their sacrifices they did. I think it was ostensibly, anyway, for a good cause. And it's important to remember that the United States actually did succeed over there. A peace treaty was signed on January 27, 1973, and right after that, just about all the American troops were out of there. And the peace actually lasted for about 2 years. Unfortunately, a few months after the peace, a treaty was signed by both North Vietnam and the United States. The Congress of the United States, the Liberal Congress, did a tremendous act of betrayal, in my view, when they passed the Case Church Amendment on June 19, 1973, which took away all funding for all air support and all air operations in Southeast Asia, because after the peace treaty, bombing stopped in South Vietnam and also in North Vietnam. Now, some of the North Vietnamese forces were in South Vietnam in the upper areas, but all hostilities basically stopped. And when the peace treaty was signed, Nixon promised President Thieu of South Vietnam that if the North was to ever break the peace treaty, break their promises, that the U.S. would respond with severe retaliation, meaning massive air power, because he had, 400 planes in Thailand ready to go. Unfortunately, the left-wing Congress, just a few months after the peace treaty was written, pulled out this vital underpinning for peace by passing the Case Church Amendment. But still, the North Vietnamese weren't trying anything. They didn't start their probing action actually until Nixon was forced out of office in August of 1974, and they didn't start probing until December of 1974, about a year and a half later from the peace treaty. And they found out from their probing action that the United States wasn't going to do anything because of the Case-Church Amendment, and the new president was in office, Ford, who was in favor of helping South Vietnam, but his hands were completely tied by the massive left-wing Congress. And so they didn't start a major attack. They didn't break their promise. North Vietnam did not break the peace treaty until early 1975, about 2 years later. And so that's what happened, betrayal by the left-wingers and the Congress.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, and also the left-wing Congress cut aid to South Vietnam. They cut it about in half, whereas the Soviet Union and Red China continued their massive aid, and so they cut it in half. But the final thing that happened that I write about, by the way, is this is close to the end of South Vietnam. I write here, and this is on my website, alaskafalcon.com. But anyway, I say, but starting on April 9th, 1975, by the way, Vietnam fell on April 30th, 1975, 2.5 or over 2 years from when the peace treaty was signed. But I write, but starting on April 9th, 1975, the 18th ARVN Division, that's the the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnamese, the 18th ARVN Division made a heroic stand at Xuan Loc, about 38 miles from Saigon. They put up fierce resistance against the North Vietnamese army, even though they were outnumbered by more than 3 North Vietnamese NVA divisions. They destroyed 37 NVA tanks and killed over 5,000 of the communist attackers. They held back the NVA for 2 weeks, but ultimately had to withdraw. The gallantry and fighting spirit of the 18th ARVN Division will never be forgotten. And anyway, on April 20th, 1975, U.S. Ambassador Graham Martin met with President Thieu and presented him and pressured him to resign due to the grave nature of the military situation. On August 21, this is the last thing I'll read here, but on August 21, 1975, a bitter and tearful President Thieu went onto South Vietnamese TV and gave a 90-minute resignation speech. He read a 1972 letter from then-President Nixon, which pledged, quote, severe retaliatory action, unquote, if South Vietnam was threatened. President Thieu condemned the U.S. and said, quote, the United States has not respected its promises. It is inhumane, it is untrustworthy, it is irresponsible. The CIA then helped him go into exile in Taiwan. Anyway, so there's the story from that angle anyway.
Well, Randy, I can always count on you to bring up the statist point of view. We should have never been in Vietnam in the first place. I don't understand that. What are you talking about? And what right does Congress or a president have to give aid to another people? Steal it from me and give it to them. We should have done like the commies did. I mean, don't you see the correlate? The commies were doing it. Yeah, they're communist. We're not supposed to be.
Well, if we had succeeded, we probably would have saved 1 million Cambodian lives that were killed by Pol Pot. Pol Pot being trained by the North Vietnamese.
But we don't know that because we went over there and had a war for 10 years. We also killed 2 million North Vietnamese. They would have been alive too.
Well, yeah, the aggressive army coming in.
We didn't just kill aggressive army. Come on.
That's right. We killed they were the aggressors in that war. The North Vietnamese were the aggressors.
They were in their own country. We were the aggressors. You can't go to another country and say we're not the aggressor.
South Vietnam was not the country.
We were over there. We were the aggressor.
Yeah, we were in South Vietnam. North Vietnam and South Vietnam were two different countries.
Yep.
North Vietnam was trying to wage a brutal communist takeover of South Vietnam.
We were over there. We had put in puppet politicians. It wasn't the will of the people. It wasn't a democratically elected blah, blah, blah. We were the invaders. We were over there. Even the South Vietnamese looked at us as occupiers.
Well, people, whether Vietnamese or whoever, they appreciate freedom. They like to own land. They like to have free enterprise. And we were trying to defend that in Laos.
They're doing a lot
Cambodia.
better right now. We were not trying to defend jack crap.
Well, when you say they're doing better right now, yes, the principles of freedom are starting to filter in. But right after they took over, there were massive executions, massive oppression. You had thousands and thousands of Vietnamese trying to.
But you don't know what would have happened if we never got involved.
Well, if we had never gotten involved, North Vietnam would have done just like North Korea, run down, conquer South Korea, which they did until they reached almost down to the Pusan Peninsula in South Korea, almost had it all until MacArthur made his end run into Incheon there and pushed him back. But that's exactly what the North Vietnamese wanted to do. They wanted to do what the North Koreans wanted to do and conquer and enslave South Vietnam, and you would have had we not tried to stop them, you would have had what's going on in North Korea right now.
Actually, originally they wanted to get rid of the French colonists.
And they were gone. The French colonists were gone.
And we came right in behind them.
Well, because they wanted to impose communism and not just get rid of the French
right,
colonizers.
but you don't know what would have happened.
Well,
if you take out, no, it's not obvious. You can't just assume with his history and historical things. We know what happened because of what we did. We don't know what would have happened if we would have minded our own business. I know one thing for sure. 60,000 Americans wouldn't have been dead for nothing. And however many hundreds of thousands that were wounded.
Yeah, those Americans are heroes. They made great sacrifices.
That should have never had to have made the sacrifice. They should have never been there.
Well, yes, I wish there wasn't a massive communist bloc that was intent on taking over the world. I wish that wasn't the case.
Oh, my gosh. The big commies weren't intent on taking over the world anyways. National communism is not America is the one intent on taking over the world. And we have.
No. We defend freedom in the world.
Oh, my word. Randy, you're driving me. You've never listened to this show, have you?
I listen to it every time.
Yeah, but you don't hear it.
I hear it. I know you're anti-statist. I know that by heart. But I'm
Randy, we should have never been in Vietnam. Those men died. We had no right to send them there. That was a Vietnamese problem.
Well, we went there not because we just said, hey, we want to get in a war. We went there because the North Vietnamese were trying to take over there, just like the communists took over all of China.
That's just too simplistic. I'm not saying that the commies were good either, but it's just too simplistic. It's kind of like the whole thing with World War II. Anyways, I mean, with the Japanese, we didn't have a freaking oil embargo on them and starving them out. They might not have attacked Pearl Harbor, but we wanted them to attack Pearl Harbor.
Well,
anyways.
The Japanese took over all of Asia with the greater prosperity sphere, and they asked the Filipinos if they liked the Japanese taking over the Philippines. They don't. They didn't appreciate.
And they didn't appreciate the Americans that were there either. I know. I have Filipino friends.
Yeah, but we left when they finally decided that they didn't want us anymore. We left. We weren't occupiers.
What are you talking about? They didn't want us when we first went there. We killed 100,000 of them to make sure that they did want us there. During the Spanish-American War, we killed 100,000 of them.
Well, I guess there were multitudes of groups. I don't know the exact history.
Because we were trying to Christianize them.
Yeah, I don't know the exact history. I know Spain had them for a while, and there were a lot of different factions there. And
well, I'm telling the truth. Spain had them. We had a war. We wanted to Christianize them because they were just Catholics, and we had to make them better. So we killed 100,000 of them. They saw us as occupiers.
Yeah, well, I haven't read up too much on that, but basically the United States is a benign. The only ground we conquer, like in France.
Benign? Are you kidding me?
The only ground we conquer in France, for instance, is the ground to bury our dead. That's the ground that we take. A little cemetery plots for the sacrifices of American
Yeah, we
soldiers.
go in and kill everyone, and then we leave. We killed 2 million Vietnamese. 2 million. Then we left.
Well, it was the communists who waged purposeful atrocities and terrorism. I mean, they sometimes we talk about My Lai.
So did the Americans.
No.
My lie happened.
Yeah, but that was an aberration. That was not the policy of the United States.
You weren't there, Randy.
No, I wasn't there. My dad was there, though. He served in Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam for 9 years as an Air America pilot, and so he was there. And he sacrificed. He got a bullet hole through his leg in his 9 years. I'm glad he wasn't killed. My dad's a hero as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm glad he wasn't also. War's a racket, Randy. I'll let you go. I got other
okay.
callers. Thanks.
Bye.
War is a racket and health of the state. Hello, caller. Thanks for holding. You're up next.
Hey, thank you. I tell you what, Randy makes my blood just boil.
I'm about ready to throw this board out the window, and then I get in trouble.
Well, I was really getting tired of hearing about the permanent fund, but I'm going to tell you, he was not there. A lot of big companies really got their foot really into that situation. DuPont with Agent Orange.
Yeah.
Bell Helicopters got with air support. And the CIA was taking care of the poppy fields.
Yeah. I wasn't there either, and I don't want to talk out of turn, but that ticked me off.
But, there was a lot of things that really come over about that whole war, and I'm sorry to say there was 50,000 people who were killed there, and how many thousand of people were killed with Agent Orange and all the other crap that was involved with that war.
And some of them are still living the effects of that Agent Orange.
Yes, they are. And, I did my time there, and, I was never able to ever watch Platoon ever in my whole life. I tried it and walked out. But, it seemed like Air America, the movie, was a little bit more realistic. I did watch that. And this whole thing about this whole war was all about money.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to get across to Randy. It never has anything to do with stopping the communist aggression. That's just an excuse.
No, and the thing of it is it took the federal government 20 years to find that people with Agent Orange had a problem made by DuPont.
Yep.
And anyways, thank you so much for your time. And Randy, I don't know what to tell you. Every time you come on that radio, you just make my blood boil. And thank you much for your program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your call very much. Mine too. Okay, deep breath time. All right, I'm better. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hi, Josh.
Yes, sir.
My name's James, and
hi, James.
I am one of those veterans from Vietnam.
Well, thank you for calling in.
And yeah, I want to thank you for letting everybody expound on their opinion without cutting them short. I really appreciate that. Sometimes it might be frustrating, but it's really good to listen to.
No, I enjoy it.
I was whatever government was looking for. I was just a young, dumb country boy that didn't know anything about anything, and I was ready to go over there and kill gooks and all of that. Well, unfortunately, the grace of God, I got stuck in a medevac unit, so I worked on medevac helicopters.
Oh, wow.
And it took me all of 2 months over there, not knowing anything about politics, to realize we're not here to win anything. And the first speech I heard over there was, we were not to refer to it as a war because it was not a war. It was a police action.
Right.
And so we could be court-martialed if we called it a war. That's how simple it was. I had two friends over there who were four-year college students, and of course, as soon as they got their 4 years in, they got drafted. And I think both of them were political science students, and they told me way back then that it's all about money. Well, I didn't know whether they were right or wrong, but over the years, and I worked for the government most of my life, over the years I realized they were 100% right. It had nothing to do with about setting anybody free. If it was setting about anybody free, why didn't we win?
Well, that's a good point, because if I got this right, the Americans didn't actually lose battles. The American, I don't know how to put this correctly, but
we won lots of battles. We just didn't win the war.
Right. Americans seem to be really good at warfare. And in my estimation, if they wanted to beat North Korea or North Vietnam and end the war, kind of like with MacArthur in the Korean War, he decided, I've had enough. We're going to beat the Chinese and the North Koreans, and he went into Incheon and beat them. It seems to me if we want to win a war, they could, but they don't want. They have no desire to. Even this documentary I was watching, there's never talk about winning the war. They just want to keep it going.
Well, see, that's why all these here military operations we got going today, they don't have no strategy. They don't have no exit plan. They don't have no time to win or anything.
No.
We used to work for Lockheed Martin. And in the foyer, as you walk in the main hall of the office, had a great big carpet and it had the world map on it. And you would be absolutely astonished how many places just Lockheed Martin has got their footprint in the world with government contracts.
Wow.
I mean, it's all about making money and power. It's got nothing to do. And all these politicians, minding your life means nothing to them. And in Vietnam, we was there over 12 years. And the more accurate number is over 58,000 out and out killed.
Yeah.
And that's our people.
Yeah.
So, and as far as the Philippines and Randy, sometimes Randy has real good inputs, but a lot of times he's often la-la led as far as his facts. But the Spanish-American War, we went to help set Cuba and a bunch of other places free, and Philippines supposed to be one of them. But the president at the time claimed he had a dream from God, and he wanted the United States to keep the Philippines. Well, that's what we did. We wasn't welcome there.
Right.
And so this government, as a belligerent government, has been for a long time. They invaded a sovereign nation and conquered it, and that's part of the nation I'm from.
Oh,
the
really?
Federal States of America.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyhow, as a young, illiterate, ignorant country boy, it took me all of 2 months to realize we had no business in Vietnam or any other place we've been for many years. I think the last place we ever even had any intention on winning was World War II.
Yeah.
The Kesley Puller, whose name was Lewis Puller, he was a colonel in the Marine Force. He went through World War II and seen how we, he led from he was one of those that led from the front, literally.
Yeah.
Bullets sticking around his head just like it was his men's. And he said in Korea, if we don't change the way we fight wars, we won our last one, talking about World War II. We ain't won nothing since then.
Yeah.
It's all about the dollars. And minding your life means absolutely nothing to this government.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, I love my country, but I don't love my government.
Right on.
I realize that the organized mobs are more honorable and more trustworthy than the United States federal government.
Yep. And there is definitely a distinction between the two.
It is. If the mafia offers to sell you fire insurance for your business and you choose to buy it, your place probably won't burn down. You don't have that kind of guarantee with the government.
Honor among thieves.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, I really like to hear you, and I get to listen to you quite often.
Well, thank you.
I've known you in the past back when we drove tractor and trailers, and I knew Jim Bopp, and he's one of me borrow his rig to get my CDL. So,
all right.
But anyhow, I like to hear you, and I listen to you as often as I can, and I sure do thank you for being the exception to letting everybody vent and express their opinion. Because even though I don't agree with some people, that's fine. I learn a lot by that,
Yep.
And it sometimes I actually get educated.
Right on. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Not always easy to let everyone vent. Just a reminder, quick, is the 97.5 on the FM, if you don't know. And the number is 907-458-8255. So the 97.5 on the FM is where we're broadcasting, not just 660 now, also on the FM. Hello, caller, you're up next. Thanks for holding.
Hey, Josh, it's Aaron again.
Yeah.
Just like the last few callers, Randy got me fired up to call back in again. So, I want to just throw up into the titles of those books again, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Shadows of Power and Truth is a Lonely Warrior. Randy by James Perloff. You need to read those books. Here's the deal, and it's as much of a nutshell as I can put it. basically every conflict that this country's fought over the last, since the Spanish-American War for sure, and likely the Civil War as well, both sides were financed by the same group of people. The Bolshevik Revolution, Hitler, every communist regime, including North Korea, North Vietnamese, same financial backers, same lineage of people. The whole reason we go into these conflicts is somebody recently mentioned the DuPont. DuPont. Well, that's owned by the DuPont family. That's a group of families that finance these wars, and they have the financial interests. They go back and look at the quotes from Eisenhower warning about the military-industrial complex. J. Edgar Hoover warning about the conspiracy so vast that Americans can't even comprehend it. He's talking about the military-industrial complex. Quotes by Carol Quigley from the CFR talking about the dialectic and how what we need to do is put two sets of politicians in, one on the left, one on the right, but have them stand so similarly together that when one group gets elected over the other, nothing really changes, but they're constantly at each other's throats. Look up Carol Quigley. He's got tons of quotes that talk about that dialectic being used. These people drive this dialectic, and they fund these wars so that they can sell arms, so they can sell chemical weapons, so they can sell missiles, along with, of course, when the dust settles, they come in and they set up their central banks. It's the same group of people. And
what was the name of the second book again? Truth is a Lonely what?
Truth is a Lonely Warrior and Shadows of Power. There's another book, too, and it sounds very conspiratorial. I'll throw it out there, but it's very accurate history in that book. It's called Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. It talks about these families as well and what they've done. It goes in a little bit more of the Illuminati aspect of it. But, there's quotes from George Washington talking about the infiltration into the United States with the Illuminati. And these if you look at the original stockholders of the Federal Reserve Bank, there's names on there like Rothschild, Rockefeller, Morgan, Carnegie, Warburg. Now, you cross-reference those names with the Fortune 100 companies, every one of them. You're going to find those names in the major shareholders. And a lot of these companies, of course, are like Bayer and DuPont. Mm-hmm. And, they talk about, recently they were talking about Bezos becoming the richest man in the world, yada, yada, yada. Well, it's not even true. The richest men in the world own the publications that put out these lists. And one of them, and I forget his name, the patriarch of the Rothschild family, just recently admitted that he alone is worth over $500 trillion. So if he's admitting he's worth that much, he's worth way more than that. The amount of money, this is the 1,000th of the 1%. It's a couple dozen families that literally own everything. They drive everything, and they drive these wars because it makes it. What it does is it saps the wealth of the middle class, and they've had their eye on America since the Civil War because we built wealth in this country so quickly. They saw that, and they went to work sucking it out of us. And how did they do that? They did it with the wars and with setting up central banks. And they've been paying off the politicians since whenever. I get a kick out of all these people. Barack Obama was the worst president ever. Well, you need to know some history about Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, compared to who?
Woodrow Wilson, basically started this whole deep state. He was the first one that really got bureaucratic executive agencies going. He started the Federal Reserve, the income tax. He got us into World War I. He tried to create the League of Nations, which obviously failed, but the League of Nations morphed into the UN and NATO. There's so much stuff that's covered in these books. I just recommend that everybody read those books and just really get an idea of what's really going on, because everything's a mirage. These same people own the media. They own the 5 corporations that own the entire MSM. You get their version of everything, and it's been that way for decades.
Yeah. That's why we got Patriot Cement, bro. Taking them on.
I know.
One little radio station at a time.
And one mind at a time. And
that's right.
It was a year and a half, 2 years ago, and there was a few times I heard Randy call in here, and maybe he called in on the old Problem Corner program, and I was like, Randy's starting to get it. Like he was saying some stuff, and I really thought Randy was turning a corner, and I was like rooting for him. I'm like, Randy, you're like waking up, awesome. And then now recently, he keeps going on about the other stuff. Whatever. I don't want to rip on Randy. I actually like Randy, and I really thought he was like turning the corner at one point. Now he's like back to the status thing. And hey, brother, if you're out there, if you read those books that I threw out there, you'll experience a wide awakening.
It's a long corner for some.
That's all right, as long as you're trying to turn it.
Yep.
All right, I'll let you go, bro.
Yep. Right on, man. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we got 3 books. The Shadows of Power, Truth is a Lonely Warrior, and Street Without Joy. Sounds like some busy times of reading books. Whew. Well, I'm already at the end of it. Well, I got 4 minutes. Appreciate everyone that called in today. That was a fun, well, let's see. Some of it was fun. Some was interesting. Some was just sit down and whew. Thanks to the folks that were involved in that conflict for calling in and sharing your thoughts on it. I appreciate that very much, and I would have to say, very brave to be able to come on the radio anyways, and then to kind of open yourself up to discuss things that, it's kind of weird. Vietnam, it's kind of a strange thing because it's the Korean War is the forgotten war, I guess, and then the Vietnam just has so much mud attached to it. I guess that's one of the reasons why I want to understand it better. I think I got the gist of it, but it does help to, you can't know unless you're there, right? You don't know anything unless you're actually involved. You can, but it's not as much as someone that's been there. It's just impossible. Possible to do. And that's why I am vehemently anti-war now. Don't need that crap. Oh, we got another caller. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, there's a guy named Carl Sandburg. He says sometime they'll give a war and nobody will come.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hopefully. Just hopefully other people are listening and won't show up for those wars. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just got a really good quote here, or a text here, and it's exactly right. Everyone, Randy, is permitted to send their own sons to go fight for someone. Well, that's not very nice, actually. Send yourself, but you're definitely quite able to send any relief money to any country that you feel the need to send it to. I know there's no South Vietnam anymore, but I'm sure the ever increasingly capitalistic government of Vietnam would accept any donations that you might send, especially in U.S. currency. So, and that's the big point. If you feel so strong about something, go do it yourself. Leave the rest of us alone. I ain't no senator's son. Anyways, that's the end of the show. Thanks, folks. Appreciate your time and your commitment to listen to the show, and I appreciate your interaction with it also. It helps the time go by for me, especially when I'm on my own. And actually, just it's good stuff. So we'll see you next week, and hopefully have a good week. Be safe. Watch out for those truck drivers.